I'm sorry, I cannot accommodate the request. Sir, can you please amplify the indeterminate sentence law? I need about 15 minutes to amplify the ISLAW and to completely discuss ISLAW in all its facets and complications. I need 30 minutes at the very least, not less than 30 minutes. And once 30 minutes lecture on ISLAW, that would be more than sufficient for purposes of your bar exam, including the determination of the penalty. But I'm sorry, we have a limited time. Actually, I was telling the dean that I should have been given at least 4 days, so for 16 hours. Unfortunately, only ang haba naman to. Can a public official be charged with consummated direct bribery under paragraph 1, article 210 of the RPC, even if the offeror is only trying to entrap the former, considering that technically there is no agreement between them? Can he be held liable for attempted direct bribery instead? This is a good question. This is a good question. And the question is, can he entrap if the offerer is only trying to entrap? Of course, when there is an entrapment, if necessarily entail that there is already a negotiation. And normally in entrapment, the police officers or the law enforcers will immediately take apprehension once there is a receipt of the mark money. And of course, once there is a receipt of the mark money class, there is already a consummated violation of 210 paragraph 1. In fact, even if no receipt of the money even if there was no receipt of the money, if there is already an agreement, agreement, the crime is consummated. Remember that? And the only purpose why this money is being given in order to apprehend the accused for purposes of evidence and not for the evidence that there was already a previous agreement. And the money does not matter anymore unless it is under the second paragraph, which is different. He has to receive actually the money. But in both instances, there is already a consummation. Is there an attempted bribery? Yes, attempted when the public officer is asking for a consideration. That is already an attempted one, asking for a consideration. Okay? So this is not even attempted direct bribery if there is a money that was received and actually at the time of the apprehension. See? All right, let's move on. Anyway, the subsequent provisions are not much common. Like for instance, this matter of unlawful appointments, this matter, but take note of 220, 221, 222, we have taken that up, 222, 223, up to 226, these are infidelities committed by a public officer. Infidelity in the custody of a prisoner, we had taken that up. Infidelity in the custody of a document, all right, 226. A letter a letter or a mail matter is considered as a paper and also considered as a document, so that a postmaster in the possession or in custody of this mail matter may also be liable for infidelity in the custody of document instead of qualified theft under 310. If you will notice, 310 class requires that the property subject matter is mail matter, hence qualified theft under 310. But if the accused is a custodian of this mail matter, it will fall under 226. 226. In one case class, the jurisprudence would show, when the money that was used in a buy-bust operation was placed in the custody of the clerk of court, because the custodian class of the court is usually the clerk of court. Now, if that money was used in the buy-bust operation and it is in the possession or custody of the clerk of court, abstraction, removal of that piece of money or bill of money would constitute a violation of 226, infidelity in the custody of the document, because this money class is used to establish a right or an obligation. It is used as an evidence, hence it is a document. It is a document, and removal thereof is a violation of 226. However, after the case has been terminated and become final, that money will form part of the public fund or property. It will not anymore constitute a document, but pure and simple currency again, and therefore abstraction of that money would amount to a crime of malversation, and not a crime of infidelity in the custody of document. 227, 228, 229, 235, we have mentioned this maltreatment of a prisoner class. The unnecessary severity is a separate offense. If there is any physical injuries or worse, homicide that was committed, this is a separate crime from maltreatment. Okay? 235. Then you have these unlawful appointments, you have this prolonging your duty, prolongation. 239, 240, and 241 class are intra-departmental usurpation. What do I mean by intra-departmental usurpation? Class, this is a crime in violation of the Constitution, separation of powers. Note that the legislative is not among those liable for intra-departmental usurpation. It is only the executive as well as the judicial branch liable for usurpation of either the legislative, judicial, or the executive, meaning that the legislators are not liable under these articles. Question: if a senator or a councilor, yes, a legislator, will issue a warrant of arrest, thereby usurping the function of a judiciary, would he not be held liable? The answer is he will be held liable, but not under 239, 240, and 241, because he is not among those which are enumerated. Expressio unius neminem excusat. Expressio unius est exclusio alterius. They are not among those enumerated. But they can still be prosecuted under the generic form of usurpation. Where do you find that generic form of usurpation? That is found in Article 177. 177 is the catch-all provision involving usurpation of function. All right? And then abuses against chastity class. Take note also that you should relate this to 7610, child abuse if the victim is a minor, and then also to 9262, violence against women and their children, VAWC, VAWC, VAWC. All right, you have a special law for that purpose. There is a lecture involving specific penal laws, special penal laws, and that will include VAWC in relation to this 7610. All right. So we now proceed with Title 8. Title 8 is one of the most common crimes, and of course, being most common, it is also commonly asked in the bar exam, usually. All right. 246 is the first article, 246, parricide. Okay. When we speak of parricide, class, we are dealing with a relationship by consanguinity, except only with the spouse. She is the only, or he is the only victim who is by reason of the affinity. It is always by reason of blood, and therefore your adopted children are not included. They are not included. Parricide. Okay. First degree does not involve legitimacy. Legitimate, illegitimate, included in parricide. But beyond the first degree, in ascendant or descendant class, the legitimacy becomes an element. Otherwise, there is no parricide. Knowledge about the ascendancy, knowledge about the relationship is immaterial. What is important here, class, is that they are related by consanguinity. There were questions before in the bar exams when the issue involved the killing of a son which they do not know, whom they do not know. Knowledge is immaterial. What is necessary, class, is that they are indeed the children or they are descendant of ascendants of the offender. As regards this question about Muslims having several wives under your civil code class, since they are already allowed legally to have 4 wives, then they can also now be held liable for as many as there are number of wives for the crime of parricide. Otherwise, there will be a discrimination in the sense that other religions are allowed, they allow only 1, and yet they commit parricide as against this spouse. So as regards them, 4, these are legitimate wives, then they have also to be liable for the privilege that they have in having 4 spouses. Okay? Parricide, infanticide, sororicide, homicide, riverside. No, there's no riverside. Infanticide and abortion class should be distinguished from one of the other, because a children born and immediately killed a boy, a child born and immediately killed. Is this parricide? Is this infanticide? Or is this abortion? Or is it possible that it is a crime of abortion? All right. The answer is yes. All right. If he was killed immediately, even if there is a relationship, even if the mother killed his own son immediately, it can never be parricide. All right. Immediate killing may either be infanticide or abortion. Why abortion? All right. Abortion. In infanticide class, there must be a personality of the victim. If the victim has no personality, then it is still a crime of abortion. Of course, relate this with your civil code. When does a person acquires personality? All right. If it has an intrauterine life of less than 7 months, even if it is expelled, even if it is born, it does not acquire any personality unless it lives within a period of 24 hours. It live within a period of 24 hours. So, during the time upon expulsion, it is still considered as a fetus, so that if it is killed, it becomes a crime of abortion. Abortion. In abortion class, there is this mitigating circumstance of concealment of honor available to both the mother and the maternal grandmother, if it is intended to conceal the honor of the mother, abortion. But in infanticide, 3 days old, 72 hours, it is only the mother who is entitled to this kind of mitigating circumstance. It is only the mother. The maternal grandmother is not entitled. Of course, this presupposes that the grandmother as well as the mother of the victim is of good moral character or has a good reputation. Otherwise, there is nothing to conceal. There is no honor to conceal because they are dishonorable. See? So, they are not entitled to this mitigating circumstance. Infanticide, distinction from parricide, above 3 days old, and then you have this abortion. You must be very familiar already with People versus Abarca, because Abarca is still the controlling case insofar as Article 247 is concerned. What is necessary here, class, is the in flagrante delicto. Absent of in flagrante delicto, 247 will not apply, notwithstanding the dissenting in that case of Laurel, etc. The majority decision is still there must be an actual sexual intercourse. The killing must be done thereafter. It cannot be before. It cannot be before. But during and thereafter must be the killing done. Note that the penalty is not considered as a penalty. The penalty of destierro actually is intended to protect the offender, protect the offender from the relatives of the victim, And that is why in People versus Abarca, when there were other people killed, when Abarca fired upon the paramour, it was not held to be a complex crime of perhaps aberratio ictus if there is only one bullet that was fired because there was another. It was simply a case of reckless imprudence resulting in homicide, 2 counts because there were 2 bullets fired, okay? Resulting in homicide because Abarca was performing a lawful act, and in the performance of that lawful act, he did not exercise the due diligence or the necessary prudence under the circumstance. Okay. 248, very easy, murder. By this time, nobody do not know why is there a crime of murder. Tama? Yes, sir. Because of the presence of a qualifying aggravating circumstance. Note that these qualifying aggravating circumstances, which must be alleged, need not be the exact provision, need not be the exact provision of the law. It may not even be alleged as a qualifying circumstance. It is enough that it is alleged that there is such an aggravating circumstance. Whether that aggravating circumstance will qualify the crime into murder, it does not matter. Before the case of People versus Aquino class, since the allegation in the information was that the crime was attended by or was attended by the aggravating circumstance of treachery and evident premeditation. Note the allegation. It merely say attended by aggravating circumstance of. It did not say qualifying aggravating circumstance. All right. For a while, class, the Supreme Court said that would only be a crime of homicide because such allegation is not enough. It should have been qualified by. Subsequently, just several months thereafter, the Supreme Court said, no, it is not necessary that the information alleges the word qualifying. It is enough that it alleged that there is an aggravating circumstance. As to whether it is generic or whether it is qualifying, this is a matter of law, question of law that will be determined by the court. And also, class, even if you do not say treachery, if the allegation in the information, the factual allegation will depict an aggravating circumstance of treachery, that will still be sufficient because it is the body of the information that will control what will be the conviction of the accused. For instance, the allegation in the information said the accused, the denier willfully and lawfully killed the victim, employing means, method, and form in order to ensure the commission of the crime, without any defense coming from the victim. There is no mention of treachery, yet the allegation will constitute treachery. That is sufficient. In like manner, in People versus Wise Hunt, the allegations therein simply said the body of the victim was dismembered. That will be sufficient to cause the qualifying circumstance of outraging or scoffing the body of the victim. Outraging or scoffing the body of the victim. In another case, the accused, the allegation is that after killing the victim, the the penis of the victim was cut. Imagine he's already dead and he was castrated. People versus Guerrero, if you want to find the citation, People versus Guerrero. And this castration after the victim was killed was considered as a qualifying aggravating circumstance to cause the conviction of murder. Because cutting, mutilation after the victim is dead is tantamount to scoffing or outraging the corpse of the victim. This is the only aggravating circumstance, class, that occur after the death of the victim. All others occur either before or during the commission of the crime. Two or more aggravating circumstances alleged in the information, only one qualifying will be sufficient. The other one will be considered as a generic aggravating circumstance. Treachery, while it absorbs mostly of the means, method, or forms adapted to ensure the commission of the crime, it does not absorb evident premeditation. Evident premeditation is distinctly different from treachery as an aggravating circumstance. No absorption. Okay? So that is murder. Of course, you know how to distinguish attempted murder, attempted homicide from a plain and simple physical injury. Okay, basic. The presence of intent to kill and the aggravating circumstance. 248, 249, 250. This is a variation of the application of the 1 degree lower application of Articles 46 in relation to 50 to 57. 50 to 57. If you will notice, 50 to 57, 1 degree lower when it is frustrated, 1 degree lower when it is 2 degrees when it is attempted. Under 250 class, if there are special circumstances attendant to the commission of the crime, it may be 2 degrees for a frustrated felony and 3 degrees for an attempted homicide or murder. This is applicable only to crimes against person, murder and homicide. You can go down by 2 degrees even if it is only a frustrated, and 3 degrees if it is only an attempted felony. Okay? Which is now an exception to the rule under 50 to 57 in relation to Article 46. Tumultuous affray. 51 and 52, tumultuous affray. San Beda, Baste, during the basketball fight, they engage in a war. They attack against each other. Question: Is there a tumultuous affray? If two identified group animated with common purpose or design attack each other, there is no tumultuous affray. Why? Because this identified group is acting in conspiracy where the act of one is the act of all. Therefore, they are liable for the crime in unison. Concerted action, the act of one is the act of all. However, even if they are an identified class, if they were not for the purpose of attacking each other class, and there is a melee out of the confusion that was caused by the heat of the game, then there is a tumultuous affray. There is a tumultuous affray. Of course, you do not go there. San Beda and Baste will not go there in order to attack each other. They were not organized to attack each other. I said from the premise that they were organized to attract each other, then there is no tumultuous affray. Tumultuous affray causing homicide is different when it should be distinguished from a tumultuous affray causing serious physical injury. In tumultuous affray causing death, any person, even if he is not a participant of the tumultuous affray, may be the victim. If only serious physical injury, then it must be a participant of the tumultuous affray who is the victim. Note that the physical injury must be inflicted either serious or less serious. Supposing it is only slight physical injury, there is no crime. Nullum crimen, nulla pena sine lege. The tumultuous affray will only be a crime of public disturbance. Public disturbance. There will be no application of 250 or 50, 251 or 252. 53, 54, we had taken that up. discharge of a firearm, as I have said, it must be directed to the victim, the person against whom being scared. Okay, 254, the crime is discharge of a firearm. Note, class, that there should be no intent to kill, because if there is an intent to kill, then it may be now attempted, prostrated homicide or murder, as the case may be. Okay, as the case may be. Then you have this matter of infanticide, you have this matter of abortion, assisting a person to commit suicide. The person assisting is liable. The person committing a suicide, not liable. But then, class, if there is a pact, agreement between two lovers that they will kill each other, all right, you hold a 9 mm, mine is 45, all right? When at the count of 3, let us pull the trigger. 1, 2, 3, boom. Be sure you get killed. Otherwise, you will be liable for assisting a person to commit suicide. Makukulong ka. Okay? So be sure you will die. Okay? In that kind of agreement. And then you have this physical injuries. Note, class, the crime of mutilation. Mutilation may either mayhem or castration. Mayhem is the lopping off of a protruding part of the body. The arm, the nose, the ears, you cut off, that is mayhem. Castration, class, does not necessarily involve cutting off, but it may entail the destruction of the reproductive organ. The target is the reproductive organ of the victim. Note that it must be intentionally done, mayhem or castration. Otherwise, if it is not intentionally done, it will simply be a serious physical injuries resulting to impotency, or a serious physical injury resulting in the deformity of the victim. It is mayhem. Vasectomy, even if it render a person sterile, it does not render impotent. Therefore, it is not the same as castration. Castration is permanent. Vasectomy is temporary. There was an actual case where the complainant would invoke that the vasectomy done to the victim is that of castration. Of course, the Supreme Court distinguished a castration from vasectomy. All right. Supposing that the accused, a battered woman, like Mrs. Bobbitt, you know Mr. Bobbitt, that is the landmark case involving battered woman syndrome, where Mrs. Bobbitt was sexually violated every time she makes love with her spouse. She is sexually violated. So that one night when Mr. Bobbitt was sleeping, Mrs. Bobbitt got hold of a scissor and cut off the organ of her husband and threw it. What is significant here is that they found the penis and was reattached to the body of Mr. Bobbitt. Yes, surgically attached. Mr. Bobbitt is still lucky, but we do not know if he can still perform as good as before because of that kind of surgery. And of course, the front runner case in the Philippine jurisprudence is also the case of Henosa, but this time it does not involve this cutting off of the organ, but Mrs. Hinosa took advantage when the husband was sleeping and got a baseball bat, and bludgeoned to death Mr. Hinosa. You see? What is common here, class, is that both of the accused, or both of the abusers were injured and killed while they are sleeping. So if you are a woman abuser, class, do not sleep. That is my advice. Do not sleep, because that is the most fortunate time that the woman will commit this injury against you. By the way, that is battered woman syndrome. So, if in the castration of Mr. Bobbitt died as a consequence, what is the crime? Assuming there is no qualifying circumstances in the cutting off of the organ. Class, do you consider or appreciate the aggravating circumstance of cruelty in mutilation? In mutilation, class, cruelty is inherent. But if the victim dies when he was castrated, class, then it becomes a crime of murder qualified by cruelty. Take note about this 1 to 9 days. In order to constitute slight physical injuries, both the incapacity and medical treatment must concur. They must concur to constitute slight physical injury. On the other hand, to be less serious physical injuries, either the treatment, medical treatment, or incapacity is more than 9 days, or at least 10 days, but not more than 30 days. Either. So 11 days incapacity, 12 days medical treatment. Even if the incapacity is less than 10 days, it is still serious, less serious. But for purposes of a serious physical injuries, medical treatment is immaterial. What is material is only the incapacity of the victim. Now we proceed to one of your favorite crimes. What is this crime? 266-A. 266-A. I need to stand up because I have to make an illustration, not a demonstration of what is this crime of rape. Illustration lang, hindi demonstration. At present now, it is not only limited to a crime, rape is not limited only to a crime of penile rape or organ rape. There is a new kind of rape which is either called as sexual assault, or object or instrument rape, synonymously called as gender-free rape, and sometimes referred to as homosexual rape, because it does not matter who the offender is, it does not matter who the victim is. He may either be male or female, vice versa. Unlike the traditional kind of rape, it is always a woman who is the victim. Okay, woman is the victim, and the offender is a male individual. All right. So that you will not forget, Kapit na. All right. All right. The traditional one class involved intercourse. That is the traditional one. Penile rape or organ rape. And the second one is assault. Sexual assault. Of course, when sexual intercourse is involved, then it is always an organ rape. Organ rape. However, if it is a sexual assault, in the same manner like assaulting a human being, you have to have a weapon, correct? Yes. And for purposes of sexual assault, what is the weapon that is used? Bakit? Oh, why? There must be a weapon kasi assault eh. When you say assault, there must be an attack. All right. So, it is also the organ or penis. Okay? Is it only the penis which is the weapon? No. It may be also an object or instrument. All right. Here, the intercourse, it is always the organ which is attacked or assaulted. But in sexual assault, what is assaulted by the organ or penis? It is a wrong opening. An opening of the body which is the object of a wrongful entry. And what are these? Ano ba naman? Mouth and dome. Very good. Anus daw. All right. That is the part of the body assaulted by this a weapon, penis. How about this object, instrument? What is assaulted? All right. Genitalia. And of course, when you say genitalia, it necessarily entails that the victim is a woman. Or anus also. All right. That is now the kind of sexual assault which is new. In like manner as sexual intercourse class or traditional rape, it is consummated the moment there is a contact. The moment there is a contact between the organ and the genitalia. And of course, the penetration is not necessary. Okay? Lately, or not lately, but not too recent ago, this object or instrument take how would I say it? The Supreme Court did not make a distinction whether this object or instrument is animate or inanimate, meaning non-living or living things. Yes, because the Supreme Court did not merely consider an object for purposes of a weapon in assaulting a victim. It is not a ball pen, yes, non-living, a bat, non-living, but also fingers, which is a living or animate object, is considered as a weapon for purposes of assault, necessarily entailing class that this aberrant act of fellatio. You know what is fellatio? The use of a tongue. So instead of finger, the tongue is used as a weapon, would also constitute as a crime of sexual assault. Sexual assault. So that tongue might invade. That tongue may invade either the genitalia or the anus to constitute sexual assault. I don't know what kind of pleasure would these people get in using their, well, that is abnormality. Okay? All right. Let us go to the jurisprudence. Let us go to let us erase this. Baka makita. Okay. With the amendment of 335, previous article of rape, 335, 3333. All right. Which is now incorporated in 266, thus A, as a crime against person. Notice the effects. Notice the effects. Rape is now a crime which can be prosecuted de officio, meaning it is no longer a private crime that requires the filing of the information by the offended party. All right, de officio. Since it is already a crime de officio class, pardon will no longer prevent the institution of the crime. Unlike when it is a crime against chastity class, pardon will prevent the incipient criminal liability. Note, it will not extinguish but merely prevent, because in the absence of the offended party, no crime of rape could be instituted. Now that is no longer a requisite. With the exception of the wife giving a pardon to her husband who commits a crime of rape, that is the only exception where the criminal liability is extinguished. In fact, it is not only the criminal liability, but also penalty is extinguished, entailing class that even if there is already a conviction of rape, the husband may still be released from confinement if there is a pardon by the offended spouse. Secondly, marriage is specifically mentioned. Because if it was not mentioned, then there may be a possibility that such marriage will not extinguish the criminal liability. Marriage is only will only extinguish the criminal liability in crimes against chastity. In all other crimes, not applicable. That is why the provision that marriage will extinguish criminal liability. But the question now is, before class, the marriage by the offended party with the rapist, before, when it was a crime against chastity, all the accessory liabilities, the accomplices are also benefited. But now with the amendment of the nature of the crime, it is no longer applicable. It is no longer applicable. Of course, if there are several offenders, like for instance, there are 4 who successively rape the victim, the marriage by one of the rapists will not benefit the other rapist because each act of sexual intercourse is distinct and separate. Only the person who got married with the victim will be benefited by such extinction of criminal liability. Okay? The first mode of committing rape, of course, you know this, force or intimidation, the use of force. What kind of force is necessary? There is now a presumption under 266, thus D, that any kind of force that will show that the offended party refused to give her consent is sufficient evidence. Why? Because this matter of force or intimidation is subjective in character. Subjective in character. It would all depend upon the circumstances and relationship of the parties. In fact, even if there is no resistance on the part of the victim, it may still be a crime of rape. Note, class, that it may be a constructive force in intimidation, especially so if the accused is a relative by consanguinity, like the ascendant father, for instance, father, godfather, guardian. There is an ascendancy, and the force that may be employed may be lesser compared to an ordinary rapist. In one case, class, the victim did not anymore resist because it was impossible to make any resistance. Still, it was considered as a crime of rape. The second one is when the victim is rendered reason, when he is deprived of her reason, when she is deprived of her reason, or when she is demented, or when she is below 12 years old. 12 years old, because a woman below 12 years old is statutory and cannot give a consent. All right, cannot give a consent. In one case, class, the allegation in the information provides willfully, unlawfully, against the will of the victim, did then and there had a carnal knowledge with the latter, meaning the accused had a sexual intercourse against the will of the victim. In the course of the presentation of evidence, class, it was proven that the victim is demented. The victim was deprived of her reason and therefore cannot give a consent. The question now is whether or not this allegation against the will would be sufficient or not sufficient to cause a conviction because the victim cannot give a consent. In other words, the accused wants to be at least secure a substitution of the information so that the prosecution or the trial will be delayed. There will be a substitution again for another information because a different crime of rape was committed. Remember, class, that a sexual assault is not necessarily included in the crime of sexual intercourse, and vice versa. If the charge is sexual assault, not sexual intercourse, substitution is necessary. In this case, class, the Supreme Court said that is enough and sufficient allegation to cause the conviction. Why? Because if he was deprived of reason, or when the victim is demented, precisely he cannot give consent. And he cannot give consent, any act committed against her without her consent is against her will. Yan ang sabi ng Supreme Court. It is against her will. Therefore, sufficient allegation of the information. As regards these qualifying aggravating circumstances, this is more of a procedural matter, such that this allegation class must not only be properly pleaded, but also properly proven. Pleaded and proven. Pleaded meaning alleged, and proper proof is adduced. How is this? All right. The accused, being the stepfather of the minor, did then and there willfully had a sexual intercourse with the latter, meaning the minor. What was proven is that the accused is the common law spouse. Being a common law spouse is also a qualifying aggravating circumstance. All right. The Supreme Court said there is no qualified rape. Why? Because a stepfather is not the same as a common law spouse. A stepfather is one who is legally married to the mother of the victim. Common law spouse is not legally married. But then, both of them may qualify, either a stepfather or a common law spouse. Pwede yan under the provisions of 266-B. But the Supreme Court said no qualified rape because while it was pleaded or alleged, it was not properly proven. It was not properly proven. And the word minor is not even sufficient. The Supreme Court said it is necessary that the age of the victim also be alleged. And not enough that it is alleged, it must also be proven. How should it be proven? People versus Pruna will tell you how to prove the age of the victim. You know what is People versus Pruna. Yung bang mga rules na birth certificate, absence of birth certificate, other records, if there was no, then you apply the presumption of pedigree under your rules of court. Ayan. Evidence yan. Evidence. Niece, even if niece is not enough or sufficient allegation, even if your revised penal code says third civil degree, which is equivalent to a niece, the allegation must specifically provide third degree relationship, not simply a niece. Kasi in common parlance, a niece, meron tayong pamangkin sa pinsan, pamangkin sa kapatid, pamangkin sa pangalawang pinsan, pamangkin pangkinan. What's that? Pamangkin whatever. Maraming klaseng pamangkin in short. So it must be alleged that it is within the third civil degree. And finally, class, the matter of spatial complex crime, or the so-called composite crime, or spatial indivisible crime. These are the same kind of bananas, the same kind of animals. Composite crimes, spatial complex crime, spatial indivisible crimes. They are all defined by the provisions of your revised penal code imposing a single penalty. Composed of two or more crimes, kaya nga composite crimes eh. The crimes composed of two or more crimes defined under the revised penal code with a single specific penalty. And this is precisely the case of attempted homicide. No, mali. Erase. Take two. This is the complex crime of rape with homicide. Okay. Note that for purposes of spatial complex crime, homicide must always be consummated. If homicide is not consummated, it cannot be a spatial complex crime. However, class, the intended crime may be attempted. That is why there is attempted rape with homicide. The composite crime, which is homicide, is always consummated, but the intended crime may be attempted or consummated. This rule applies in all kinds of spatial complex crime. This rule will apply in all composite crimes, which we will be learning later, like kidnapping with murder, robbery with homicide, attempted robbery with homicide. The composite crime is always consummated, but the intended crime is either attempted or even prostrated if there is such stage of felony for purposes of the intended crime. Later on, makita mo yung robbery, hindi ba? What is the intended crime? Robbery, always robbery. And what is the overt act? There must be an intent to gain. And that composite crime of homicide or rape must always be consummated. Otherwise, if it is not consummated, what will happen? It may be constituted as a separate offense or may be constituted as a complex crime under Article 48 if it is a necessary means to commit the intended crime. Mabilis ba? Baka mabilis tayo. I am a little bit going on faster because of time constraint, and it's almost 8:30. Okay, but don't worry. We cannot still go home because the rain is heavy. See? Whoa. We will just be risking some health problems if we have to go home against the rain. See? We better stay here because we are safe. We are safer here, and at the same time, we will be learning a lot, hopefully. With my guidance, I hope you are learning, okay? Yes, I'm talking about spatial complex crime. But in this case, class, if homicide is attempted, it seems that it cannot be a complex crime under Article 48 because attempted homicide is never a necessary offense to commit the crime of rape. You did not attempt to kill your victim in committing a crime of rape. But in robbery with attempted homicide, it's possible because the attempted homicide may partake the nature of force and intimidation, as a kind of force and intimidation in order to achieve the crime intended to be committed, which is robbery. Robbery with force and intimidation under Article 294. That is the end of Title 8. That is the end of Title 8. Title 9 are crimes committed against personal security and liberty. And what are the common crimes under this article? Sir, kidnapping or illegal detention, light or serious in character, threats, coercion. And then there are a lot of threats or coercion involving a minor children. And this should be related again to your 7610. You know, reading 7610, it is so broad that it covers not only Title 9, Title 9. It also covers Title 10. It also covers Title 11, crimes against chastity. Hindi ba? And not only chastity, even Title 11. 12. Kasi any acts committed against their person, meaning minor, that will demean their person or dignity, you see. Section 10, I think 10B. Before I forget, killing a minor is always 13 years old below. Killing a minor 13 years old below is always a crime of murder because of the inherent weakness of the victim to defend against the accused class. It becomes a case of murder qualified by treachery. Of course, class, to apply this principle, do not apply it literally, because this presupposes that the accused is an adult individual. If the accused is also a minor, then it may not be a case of murder. Not murder. Okay? Kasi, sir, sabi nyo, it is always murder kung basta 13 years old below. Yung pumatay, 10 years old. Paano maging murder yan? Baka wala pang liability. Walang liability pa. But then, even if he has a liability, assuming that he is 16 years old, it will not be a crime of murder dependent upon the circumstances. Okay? Now, kidnapping and serious illegal detention. Kidnapping involves moving from one place to another with the intention to detain or deprive the victim of his freedom. This is a transitory offense which may be tried from any place where the victim was moved. Transitory. Illegal detention, of course, you know what is illegal detention? Deprivation of one's freedom. But class, for purposes of illegal detention, it is not necessary that the accused will be totally deprived of his freedom so that he will be placed in an enclosure so that he cannot move with liberty. Detention may also be constructive in character. As for instance, a 9-year-old boy is brought somewhere in Basilan. Even if he can move around in Basilan, he cannot leave Basilan because he does not know or cannot leave the premises. Hence, there is still a crime of kidnapping. Next point. There must be a clear manifestation of intent to detain, lest it cannot be a crime of kidnapping or illegal detention. In one case, class, the accused brought the woman somewhere in Cavite, drove the same there, and then the purpose is to compel the woman to marry him. Pakasalan mo na ako, halika, punta tayo sa Cavite. Ayaw ka umuwi. No, sabihin mo muna oo. Sagutin mo muna ako ng oo. Otherwise, hindi tayo uuwi. And after a while, they went home. Filed the case, kidnapping? No, that is not kidnapping. Because there was no appreciable time. And secondly, there was no intent to detain or deprive the victim of her freedom, but only to compel the victim, hence a crime of coercion. In one case, the victim was seen with his hand tied with the accused. They were walking, and then they disappeared, and for several years, the victim was never found. Okay? Of course, he was tied. There is a deprivation of his freedom, but it is only slight illegal detention, not serious illegal detention. How about the killing? The Supreme Court said there is no sufficient evidence that mere companionship before the killing already sufficed to cause the conviction of homicide or murder. There must be additional evidence. All right, when is it qualified or when is it serious? All right, you know this, when the victim is a woman, when there is a abuse of authority, when the victim is a minor, irrespective of the period of detention. But if it is other than minor or a woman, more than 3 days. More than 3 days. Here, the parent was exempt from the crime of kidnapping or serious illegal detention. Thus, the parent can never be held liable for kidnapping of his own child. At the very most, he can only be convicted of failure to return a minor if he was deprived of the custody of the minor. And at the initially, he was given the custody or authority to take care of the minor, and he failed to return. 270 will apply. 270 actually should not be couched or should not be termed as kidnapping, but only failure to return a minor because there was a consent initially. Also in one case class, even initially the victim went with the accused. If later on he was deprived of his freedom, still there is a crime of kidnapping. Before we go home, I will discuss last paragraph of Article 267, and then we call it a night. Last paragraph, because this is the most important provision introduced by Republic Act 7659. What is the last paragraph? If the kidnapping is attended by killing, rape, or what's that? Unnecessary? All right, very good. For this provision to apply, take note of the primordial or primary intention of the accused. The accused's intention is to detain the victim. If you see the problem in your bar exam that there is no showing that the accused intend to detain the victim, forget the last paragraph of 267. Forget. For instance, the victim was brought in Pasay, and while in Pasay, she was raped immediately. There is no appreciable time where the victim was detained. Immediately when brought to Pasay, she was raped. Immediately when she was brought to Pasay, the victim was killed. Is there kidnapping with murder? Is there kidnapping with rape? All right. These are mere preparatory acts. The kidnapping are preparatory acts in order to ensure the killing or to ensure the commission of the crime of rape. However, class, if the intention is to detain, all right, there must be a showing, of course, that it was the purpose of the accused, and whether there was a subsequent killing or subsequent rape, it does not matter anymore. It becomes a spatial complex crime or a composite crime. Distinguish this with abduction with rape, which is a special, no, not a special complex crime, but plain and simple Article 48. Abduction was a necessary means to commit rape. The abduction or taking of the woman at the inception, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. No, that's not. At the inception of the crime, there is already a lewd design. There is a manifestation of lustfulness, because lewd means lust, obscene, all right. And it was a necessary means to commit the crime of rape. That is abduction with rape. Again, itong napakahirap ko minsan. If the intention is to rape, abduction is absorbed. In one case, immediately upon the arrival of the accused inside the building, the accused went on top of the woman, showing or manifesting that his intention is to rape. So that when the police officer barged inside the house of the accused, the accused was still on top of the woman, showing that the primary intention is indeed to commit a crime of rape. All right. In other words, class, the last paragraph of 267 is a special complex crime. All right. Note that if there is a ransom, automatically forget about detention. Forget about the intention of the accused, whether to kill or not. Once there is a ransom class and the victim was, you know what is the meaning of ransom. There is a demand for any condition, money, consideration, or otherwise. There is a consideration, money or otherwise, it is a ransom. We adopt the American jurisprudence on this matter of ransom. Whatever be the purpose, so long as it is conditioned upon the liberty of a person, it is considered a ransom. In one case, class, payment of a debt, to compel the payment of a debt, is considered still within the term ransom. And ransom class, it is enough that there is a demand. It is not necessary that it be delivered. It is a crime of kidnapping with ransom. As I promise you, I will just discuss the last paragraph and I will send you home. All right? Good night to everybody.